Every time when I teach air combat tactics, there's always a guy who asks the question, but Merlin, what if the bandit does this? Or Merlin, what if the bandit does that? Or hey, there's a flaw in the tactic right here. Yeah, and you're still trash at the game, so why don't we just call it even, huh? But anyways, here's my complete basic defensive 2v1 air combat tactic guide for new guys. Tactic 1, the sandwich. Assuming a bandit has already slotted in on a fighter in an element, in this case fighter 1, the element should then make simultaneous turns to the side of whichever fighter is being engaged. In this case to the right side, as fighter 1 is on the right side of the element. By doing this, fighter 2 will be able to slide in behind the bandit for an easy shot. If fighter 2 is the one being engaged, then the element would turn to the left and the play will unfold just the same, allowing for fighter 1 to take the shot. This tactic is more suited to aircraft with good speed and good acceleration characteristics. By having a good speed advantage over the bandit, fighter 1 will have no problem in staying out of the bandit's weapons. In the case of a missile attack, it should also be relatively easy to counter with countermeasures and slight chinking maneuvers. The defensive fighter only needs to evade long enough for his wingman to get the shots off on the bandit. Tactic 2, the half split. The half split is a variation of the sandwich which addresses some of the limitations of the sandwich. Assuming the bandit has not yet picked a target, the play unfolds as follows. Fighter 1 extends forward whilst Fighter 2 makes a sharp turn away from his wingman. This forces the bandit to commit to a target. In the first variation, the bandit decides to follow the extending fighter. This allows Fighter 2 to make a sharp reversal, which will allow him to get a shot off on the bandit. If the bandit decides to pursue the turning fighter instead, then he opens himself up to another sandwich type situation as follows. But what happens if the bandit switches or jukes targets? Well, in such a case, the fighter that ends up turning into the bandit should go for a merge and adapt accordingly. Once a bandit has committed to merging with one of the fighters, he should be at a slightly disadvantageous position that can be exploited by the second free fighter. Tactic 3, the defensive split. The defensive split is a tactic that is more suited to aircraft with better turning and maneuvering characteristics over the bandit. This tactic is basically a defensive version of the bracket, where both fighters turn in opposite directions, forcing the bandit to commit and split his attention. Depending on who he decides to engage, the free fighter will be able to slot in behind him for a shot. Tactic 4, the Thach Weave. I do not recommend anyone to try this particular tactic, which involves both fighters turning into each other. Due to the nature of the mechanics in War Thunder, arcade and realistic, turning both fighters into each other doesn't really grant any real tactical advantage. Instead, it more often than not creates more problems, as now both fighters have to keep track of each other to avoid a collision on top of keeping track of the bandit. At the end of the day, individual initiative, experience, and skill will ultimately trump all. Do not take tactics as an end-all be-all answer. The primary thing you should take from these lessons are ideas and concepts that should ultimately improve the way that you think in a dogfight. Good communication is necessary for good coordination. If your comms are not clear and concise, your wingman will find it very difficult to execute any of these tactics in a real scenario. Training and discipline is necessary if you want good results. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, then please like and subscribe, and I'll make more. Thanks.